Hello, we are going to work through your Module 3 Access SAM project. So I've opened up my database that SAM has given me. You can see there's some pre-typed tables, queries, etc. ready for you to edit, but we're going to create a query to start out with. We're going to go into Create, and instead of using the wizard to do a simple one, we're going to do one a tiny bit more complex than you've done before. Just a few more steps. So we go into Query Design. That's going to put us in Design View, by the way. We'll just slide that over. And you can recognize that you're in Design View and Access because you'll always have this criteria, properties area down here at the bottom. It looks a little different than what you're used to. But what we're going to do is before we selected tables and fields off of tables and added them to create a query, but that was not in Design View, okay? So if you look, when your views change, of course, it won't let me do it now, but you know how you change your view here. We weren't doing that in Design View. So the reason we're doing it in Design View is because it can let us add a criteria, such as a name or a zip code or anything, literally, and it also lets us sort, which is in a ascending or descending order. So what we're going to do is we're going to add whatever table or tables Sam wants us to add, and it wants us to add the professor's table. So just double click and you'll see it will pop up here, and the grants table. You can see you're in the table tab. Don't click over here and choose something different. Also professor, so double click. So here are the two that we're looking for. So we can close this. Now you could also click on a table and click add. It would do the same thing as double clicking. So highlight and add will give you the same. I'm going to close that because we've chosen our tables. Now, anytime you see a scroll bar, that means there are more fields listed. So I'm going to, as you can see, there's more. Grab the bottom of the box, two-headed arrow, and slide it out till I can see them all, because it might ask you for a field and you can't see it. Okay, so here is our two different fields. Okay, now that you see, we have the professor's table and the grants table. And here are all the fields that were in those tables. We didn't get to choose this time. We just gain all of them when you're in design, when you're in this particular query design view. So, which fields do we want to choose now? Instead of choosing them through the box that we did before, we're going to add them down here to this grid. So Sam wants us to first go to the professor table, which is here, and it wants us to add the grant name. Oh, excuse me, I'm in the wrong one. It wants us to add from the professor table, professor's first name and last name. These two fields. So how do I get them down here? Well, you can see right here it says field and table. So if you grab with your mouse this field that they're asking you for, and you drag and drop it into this field. Not only does it drag the field name, but it tells you what table it's from, just to make sure you're on the right path. So now, starting left to right is what we're going to do. So we're going to do the next one here. Sam wants us to add the last name. That makes sense. It's right here. So you grab it with your mouse, hold down, drag, don't let go, till you get to the field. You see where you're pointing at it? Drop it. Now you have the first name and last name from the professor table. That's the first thing Sam wants. The second thing is from the grants table, it wants us to add the grant name, which is here. Grab and drop. Make sure you're pointing in the right place. It also wants us to add the average award field, which is this one. Touch with your mouse, don't let go, drag down, point to the correct field, and drop it. I'm going in order of what Sam asked for. From here, starting left to right, it will make your life easier if they want you to make any kind of changes. Okay, now that you have the field names and they're in the correct table, what we want to do is sort some of these fields, which means you're looking at this one as someone's first name or last name. You want it in a certain order. Usually last names come A to Z. That's ascending. So you're telling it basically to alphabetize. So how do we do that? We want to sort the records in ascending order by professor's last name. Professor's last name field. So make sure you click on this sort, this cell. See where it says sort? Make sure you're underneath last name. Then you drop your arrow to make choices and you click ascending. Now, this is what Sam's asking you to remember. So now we know when we run this query that the field or column that says last name, it will be in A to Z order or ascending order. Now, it wants us to save the query. You're thinking, well, I don't see any type of place to save. Two things you need to do at this point. You can either run the query or you can switch back to datasheet view. They do the same thing. So first I'm going to switch back to datasheet view and look. Here's what you just asked for. Here are the 4 fields you chose off the 2 different tables, and there's the information that it pulled from those 2 different tables. So here's where it says query 1, we want to save that. And you can see this is a tiny bit different in saving as well. We don't have that window that follows step to step to step where you click next, 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 okay? And we want to save it as stand for professional, I'm going to guess, grants. And then we click OK, and it gives us professional grants. The name's correct, and here is the query you just created. Now let's close it. We want to open up another query in Design View and make some changes. So when we want to make a change on an existing query, okay, we're not really wanting to create one at this point. We want to make a change to one that Sam's created for us or in the real world you created. So to open up this query, Professor Assignments, right here, in Design View, the easiest way is to right mouse, click Design View, and you can see. You can see it's created. This is what you had created before, the same setup, except this time you have 3 tables. No different, 1 to 3, no different. So what we want to do is learn how to delete one of these. And it happens to be the time one. This little guy here. Okay? So we can highlight it and go in and click delete, and he's gone. Easy enough. I take that method. Also, what we want to do is add something called a criteria. And a criteria means you are searching through a field looking for something specific. So if I put a criteria on professor's last name column, and I put in my criteria box right here the word painter, then it'll only show me professors with the last name Painter. So you're doing a question inside your query or inside your question. You're narrowing it down to something very specific. So let's see what we want to search for. We want to go into class number field, which is here. So make sure you're on the right cell, which is criteria. Make sure you're in the right field and on the right criteria box. Now, what's our criteria? We want to find something that equals a class number. So what we want to do is put an equal sign, and we want to type it in CIS 162. So you're looking for a class number, and only this class number. Nothing else should show up for you when you're searching that. Okay? So I clicked run, or you could have switched back to datasheet view, either one. And here is the criteria I asked for. Only show me this class number, and there they are. So here's all the teachers that are teaching that class number, CIS Computer Science 162. Okay. Works for me. It already has a name. And unless Sam asks you to change it, all you need to do is click Save. Okay? So if it asks you to open up the query you're working on, if you're in Design View here, and it asks you to open the query, you can either click Run. A lot of students are comfortable because they understand the word run means I'm going to make it happen, or simply click back to Datasheet View. Either way, you will get your criteria you just ran. Okay, next Sam wants us to, and I'm going to close this, doesn't get too convoluted up there. Open up the Monday or for query in Design View. So go to Queries and find the Monday or for, open it up in Design View, right mouse. I hit delete by mistake, so don't do that. Thank goodness it warned me. Design View, and you can see you've already created a query that has field names from several tables. You've even put some in ascending order. Great. So what are we going to do to this guy? We're going to add another criteria and practice that. So where do we want to go? We want to add a criteria to select only those records where the credit field equals 4. So we need to go to the credit field here. Make sure you're on the right criteria cell, which is here. Sometimes you have to, run your mouse across or even your finger. Make sure you're in the right place. And we want to find anything that equals 4. Okay. Remember, equal number 4. Great. And now we also want another criteria in a different field. We can do that. So we leave this one as is because Sam wants equal 4. You're looking for the number. Any classes that have a 4-hour credit, which happens to be the class you're in, I think. And then we want to go over to the meeting day field. And we want to do another one. Now, do we want to put the criteria here? I'm going to put the criteria on this OR line. That way we know we've got a 4 or. Okay, so we want this one to equal M, which I guess stands for Monday. Classes meet on Monday. So if I'm looking for a quick report that tells me what classes are 4 credit hours and only meet on Monday, that's what you just did with these two. Now don't be afraid if you type in a letter or a name or a word that Access puts quotation marks around it. That's perfectly normal. It's supposed to do that. You're not. So the question is in this query we're running right now is, show me all classes with credit hours of 4 and show me all of those classes that meet on Monday. And that's what you have, what the M stands for. Okay? Now what happens if we run it this time instead of switching? Okay? Remember also you could have switched here, same thing, and look what we get. Here are all the classes that either or, because that's the key word here, have 4 credit hours or meet on Monday. So it's either going to have a 4 in this column or an M in this column, because that's the 2 fields you asked for. Okay, good job. Let's close this guy. He's already got a name. Okay, moving on. I'm going to close him again. And what we want to do now is make a few more changes back in Design View. Sam wants to go to Department Offerings Query. You're just practicing this over and over, okay? So what are we looking for? Department Offerings. Right here to open in Design View. Right mouse. We have 2 tables and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields, and you've already got 1 in ascending order. Now what are our changes? We want to add another field. We decided that we want to add one more thing on our query. So we want to add delivery method out of the sections table. Well, where do we add that? You add it at the end here unless Sam tells you something different. okay? And it's telling you it wants it directly after this description field. So it's wanting it right here. So what we're going to do first is take the delivery method field, make sure we've got it off the right table, and I'm going to move it here because there's nowhere to move it in here. But now we're going to rearrange it and move this little guy. So to do that, you highlight it and it highlights in black, and then you want to grab the line that borders the two columns, and holding down your mouse without letting go, you can see this little line is moving. Did y'all see that? Okay. So what you want to make sure you've got it, okay? And then you want to move it. Watch this. Make sure it's not this thin line, it's the thick black line. See this thick black line? See how it's moving? Holding down your mouse. It wanted it after the description field, so it's right here, and you drop it. Okay. Pretty simple. Now we want to add a criteria to the credit field, and that's this one. And we want the criteria line, make sure you're there before you start, and we want a value that is less than, okay, what's the less than symbol? This little guy here. That is less than or equal to 3. So we must do less than 3 and go down to our OR line and do equal 3. Could I have put equal 3 and then less than 3? Sure, I'm just going in order of what Sam wants. So there's your two criteria. What you're asking is, show me all credits that are 3 or less than 3. So you should have 3, 2, and 1. There should be no 4s. Okay, so let's run it, or simply switch it back to datasheet view, and here they are. And you can check and see if you're correct. This one's, you can go through, here's the credit field, and look, just eyeballing. You don't see anything that's over 3, so you did it correctly. So this would show a student really quickly that needs up to 3 hours, no more than 3, you would run this query for them. Okay, so let's go in and let's actually go back to design view and add a couple more things. Actually, no, let's don't. Let's do this. Let's go back to datasheet view and let's sort some records. If we forget to do any kind of sorting, we can stay here in datasheet view, your home view, and we can sort. It wants the description field, which is here. This is your description field. And if you want to sort it, you can go here, A to Z, or you can make sure it's highlighted, or you could go up here to ascending and click ascending, and now it's put in A to Z order. A lot easier for a student to read if they're looking to take an Algebra 2 class. They just scan through the A's. That's why you do that. Okay, so two ways of doing that. We could have sorted that in design view, down here in sort, or again, you can do it in, if you forget, you can do it while you're in datasheet view. Now we want to do an editing. That means something's changed, you just want to retype it. So it says to go to the first recording in the description field. Here's description field, make sure at the top. And it says accounting for nonprofit. It wants you to add the word organization. Simply double click to get in that cell. There you are. Space and start typing organizations. And you're done. Just click off anywhere to get out of that one. Simply, this is just simple editing. Now we want to save this. We've done a lot of work to it, and close it. And there's a picture in figure 1 that shows you what it should have looked like when you completed. Now, we want to open the hybrid query here, back to design view. A lot of practice in design view. 3 tables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. And as you can see, it's already have a criteria in the delivery method field right here. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to move the credit field. Here's the credit field, this little guy here, this whole thing. And it says it wants us to move it to the first column, okay, in your grid. So again, you must get that thick, not the thin, but the thick black line. And sometimes you have to play with it to make sure you've got it. And once it's highlighted in black, click it again. See your pointer? There's your thick black line. And it wants it to move to the very first, so I'm going to the very left as far as I can go and drop it, and it's moved it. Remember, if you highlight something in black, you just use your pointer and you have your thick black line. Don't use your little arrow over here, four-headed arrow or two-headed arrow. That gives you a smaller line. So now credit is the first field in our grid. Now it also wants us to sort in descending order the credit field we just moved. So we go to sort, launch it, and put it in descending order. Then it wants us to go over to the class number field, which is here, and it wants this field to be in ascending order. So it should look like this. Now I'm going to make sure by either running or switching to datasheet view to make sure everything's up there. Looks good to me. So we're going to save this because it already has a name and close it. And now we are on number 6. This is a long one. I'm sorry, guys. Open the Quinn Online query in Design View. Quinn Online Design View, and add another criteria. Okay, so we're going to go into the professor last name field, which is here, and it wants us to have a criteria, so we make sure we're in the criteria box, and the value equals Quinn. Okay, so we're looking for somebody's last name that's Quinn. Okay, so we want to do equal and type in their name, Quinn, and make sure it's spelled correctly because Miss Painter needs to type, or it won't. And again, click off of it. You'll have asterisks, and that's okay. Not asterisks, quotation marks. Make sure you spell it correctly because if you spell it wrong, it'll tell you that none of those people exist. Now we want to go to the delivery method field, which is here, and we want to do our criteria down here, and let's read what Sam says. Sam says in the delivery method field, the value equals online. Okay, so we're looking for criteria, the classes that are only online. So equal online. Okay, so here's your question. What classes does Professor Quinn teach online? Run it, and there you are, or you could have switched to datasheet view. And Professor Quinn teaches 2 classes online, and here they are. That's what you were looking for. Now I'm going to save that and close it. Now we want to open up the PM courses query. Kind of glad we didn't have to make all these original queries. That would have taken a lot of time. Luckily they're already typed up for you. So we want to go to the PM courses. Open up in Design View. 3 tables, lots of fields. And what do we want to do? We want to go and add a criteria to the time field. Here's the time field. Want to add a criteria? Make sure you're in the right box. That's the right one. The criteria is to select those records where it is greater than 12 p.m. So how do we type in greater? We know that's a shift period. And we want greater than 12 p.m. So when you type in greater than, oh, wrong symbol, Miss Painter, make sure that's correct. I have greater than, that's correct. Greater than, I put in 12:00 and PM, and this is what pops up. It puts in these hashtags in front and back. You don't have to do that. It does it for you. So what are we looking for? We're looking for all classes that start after 12 o'clock. Maybe you're one of those people that like afternoon classes. So run it, and here it is. As you can see, they're all after 12 o'clock. This is the field you just created. Okay, so we can close this. I just like to save, makes me happy. Open up the CSI courses. That's going to be your computer science courses in Design View. And we want to do another criteria, 3 tables, see your fields. We want to go to the class number field, this one. And we want to go to the criteria line, that's here. And we want to have a value that has CIS as the beginning. So we want to look for all, equal, all CIS classes. That's what you're typing right here. As you can see, any class number that starts with CIS. That's what you're asking. Okay? You can run it or switch views. And this sometimes can happen. You get nothing. And you're thinking, well, what did I do wrong? So go back to Design View. You're saying something that equals CIS. Okay, on your criteria here. Now, if you came up empty, that's because we're doing something called a wild card here. It's a little different. I don't have a name, like the class number's not 162. I'm not even sure what the whole number is. But I know these numbers start with CIS. So I need to put in just CIS and an asterisk, because I don't know the numbers that come after CIS. So the asterisk means if you find CIS, and anything after it, I don't care what number it is, show it to me. So I'm going to click off here, and you can see it will pop up like CIS, asterisk, and asterisk stands for anything and everything. So your query question is, in the class number field, show me all classes that start with CIS. I can't remember the numbers, I don't know the numbers, or I don't care what the numbers are. I just need anything that starts with CIS. Then switch, and you'll see here are all the classes that start with CIS. And that's what you just ran. Perfect. So I'm going to save this and close this. Now we want to create a new query. So we're going to go back to create, and we're going to go to query design, because that puts us in Design View. And I'm going to move this choice of tables. So what do we want to do? We want to choose some tables. We have to at least choose one to get at least one field. So we want to choose teaching assistants. So you can either double click or you can click and add. And we also want the sections table. This one I'm going to highlight and add just so you see. Now remember, we have a scroll bar, so we have more fields. Whoops, sorry, close. Yes, sir. We have more fields, so let's open that up to make sure we see them all. Now, what fields do we want to add to our grid? Add the teaching assistants table and the sections table. We are good. 9B. Add the TA last name. This is a teacher's assistant. Again, hold down, drag, pop it where you want it. From the teaching assistant table, that's correct, and you can see it put in the table for you. Then it wants us to add class number from the sections table. I'm just going in order, touching my field. Meeting day, drag and drop, and time. Grab that field, drag and drop. You should have 4. Okay? 1 from the teaching assistant table and 3 from the sections table. Now it says it want to save this. Well, the best way to save it is to run it. And here we are. You can double check. You have everything you need. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 fields, and the 4 you asked for. So let's save this little guy. And what do we want to call him? TA sections. And you're done. Close him out. He's good to go. Okay, number 10. Open the 2 credit sections query. That's this one. In Design View. Going to do a little more practicing. Wants us to add a criteria to the credits field. So here's the credits field. Get on your criteria line. We want to find all classes that have a credit of only 2 hours. So equal to. How do we know if that's going to work? Well, I like to click off of it. You can run it or switch to datasheet. I'll run it. And there's all the classes that are 2 credit hours. So we can save that and close that. Now we want to open the tuition by course query, tuition by course, and of course we're opening it in datasheet, Design View, ignore me, in Design View. And we want to add a criteria to what? We're not going to add a criteria as such. We're going to add in a calculation. Okay, so to do that, we have to figure out what field. So number 11 says to open it up, modify the query by creating a calculated field. So where do we want to put that calculated field? We have to figure that out first. The first thing we figure. So here's the next empty field. You're not choosing a field like here off a table. You're creating a calculation. So not a field, it's a calculation. You want to say maybe if tuition goes up a certain percent, how much would it be? So that's what we're trying to calculate here. We're not adding a field. We're just using the space for a calculation. And we want to calculate tuition times the credits you have. So what you want to do is 2 things. You can type it straight in here, or you can do a Shift F2 and get a neat little box to do it in, whichever one you want. I'm going to type it in here just so you know. And what we want is to know tuition. So we type tuition. Make sure you spell it correctly. Okay, this is number 11. And how do we calculate the tuition? Well, we want to use this credit field. So what we have to do is colon, space, use these smooth brackets right above your enter, smooth brackets so you don't shift. We want to use the credits field. So make sure that's spelled correctly. Smooth bracket to close. So to calculate tuition, we want to use how many credits. So we want to know how much the class is going to cost. The student's going to ask this, of course, all the time. You calculate it by how many credits the class has times Shift 8 110. Okay, and I'm going to click off that little guy and you can see what it looks like. And when we run it, here's what you get. So if you take basics of income tax on Monday at 10 a.m., that's how much it's going to cost you. $330. Not too bad. So I'm going to flip back there and make sure you got that. And again, you can Shift F2, and I know a lot of people don't have that maybe on certain computers, so you could have typed that in straight here and clicked OK, or you could type it straight in here. So you're not creating a field or adding a field, you're creating a calculation that just shows up in this field. Okay? Good job. So I'm going to close this, and we are on the home stretch, number 12. We want to open up a table this time. The sections table, the easiest way, double click. We're now in datasheet view, your home view. We want to use your find and replace, that's this little guy's here, because a couple things we need to change the spelling and we only want to do it one time. So I'm going to click replace, because that gives me my find and replace. Find just lets you search. Here's your replace. Now what are we looking for? We want to find records with delivery method field value of face-to-face, and then we want to change it to the word traditional, because we only want it to be called traditional, not face-to-face. And let's see this little guy here called face-to-face? We don't want that anymore. So we're going to type that in exactly, because if you don't, it won't be able to find it. Here's face-to-face, and we want that to now be called a traditional class, or a seated class is what it is. Traditional. Okay, we want to look in the current field. I'm going to change this to the whole document right there. Did you notice? I want to search the whole document. Okay. Click find or replace all, either one. That's one by one. This is all. And it tells me I'm not able to do that. So let's put it back in current field and see what happens. There's finding it, and it won't let me replace it. So what did Miss Painter do wrong? Let's try this method. Let's highlight the field that we want to change, and your face-to-face is in the delivery method field. Then let's go in and replace face-to-face with traditional, and don't change the whole document. Stay in the current field and replace all. It's still not letting me do it, so hold on tight. Okay, it's just giving me a warning, that's all. So, nope. It says it's not found. So, what did I type incorrectly? That's the first thing you look for. Okay, it changed at that time. The reason I'm getting that message is because it already changed. When I click replace all, item not found, well, that makes sense because it finally switched. See, you see no more face-to-face, just traditional. So again, you just go to replace, type in face-to-face, change with traditional, and stay in that current field. Don't switch your field, and then replace all, and click yes, agree to it. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't even notice it had changed. So now we want to close this little guy, and we want to go to the professor's table. I'm going to open that up in datasheet view and make the following changes. Change the font. So if I want to change all the font, I can click right here. See this very faint triangle? Click that box to highlight everything. Or I'm going to unclick it and let you do a Control A. If you remember that from Word, that is a Control A for all. It highlights everything too. And we just want to change the font in here. We want to change it to Times New Roman, and of course T's are going to be at the bottom. It's in ascending order. And we want to change the font size to 10. And we want to do some sorting. So we want to go to last name field here. And again, we can sort here, A to Z, or you can go right here and click ascending. Same thing. Now we want to save that little guy and close him out. Number 14. With the professor table still open, okay, let's go back, double click. Add a calculated currency field called monthly. Okay, here you click here to add a field. Okay, and it wants one that divides the salary by 12. This is the same thing we just did in Design View when we were working in Design View in a query. Remember we put in a calculation? Same thing here. Okay, once you've gone to the last field, I'm going to maybe leave that one there. We won't delete it. But once you've added in that new field and you name it Monday, if I'm not mistaken, that is what Sam's asking you to call it. No, It's monthly, not Monday. Pay attention, Miss Painter. Okay, so monthly. Okay. Okay. Now once you have the name, what you want to do is right mouse. Okay, so what you want to do is click the arrow to launch other options, click calculated field and currency, and you will get this calculation box. What we're wanting to do is pick the salary field, which is this one, which is what people make year to year, 365 days, 12 months. So we want to type in salary. And then we want to divide it by 12 to see how much they would get paid each month. Hence the word monthly as your title. So click OK, and you will see now you have a brand new field where they have divided the salary by 12 and you come up with a number. So the only thing left to do is to go in and rename your field. From field 1, we want it called monthly. And you got it. Again, if you have a new field, you launch it, use calculated in this case because we are using a division. You go in and use currency because we're using money. And this is the field we use, salary, which is this one. So you type in salary and divide is your / and by 12 and you get this amount. So if you did this times 12, you would get this amount of money. Okay, and to change the name of your field, you simply just right mouse, rename field, and make it monthly. Now we're going to save and close. And number 15, we're going to open the teaching assistant table in datasheet view. So that's a simple double click. And we want to sort the records in descending order in the stipend field. Here's the stipend field. So you can click here, or you can go straight up here after it's highlighted and click descending, and you can see it goes from largest to smallest. Close that, and we're on our last question. Open the professors table in datasheet. That's a double click, and it wants us to hide the prof, which is professor email, this one, and the hire date. Well, there's nothing in there right now, but let's just pretend there was, and you want it to close, you want it to hide those. So if someone gets this database, they really wouldn't see it unless they knew how to open it. So it's just some confidential information maybe you're trying to hide. So the first thing you always want to do is highlight what you want. Then you want to launch it. Okay, maybe it doesn't want me to highlight. How about just a launch? Okay. How about a right mouse? There we go. Highlight the field, and if you'll see right here it says hide field. It's still there, it's just hidden behind these two columns. So the same thing, highlight, right mouse, and hide fields. So they're back there, you just can't see them. And then it wants us to save, and you can get those back too. You could highlight these two and go in and unhide your fields if you needed to find those again. So we're going to save and close, and you're finished, and it just wants us to go up into the compact and repair. Run that and close your database, and you are finished. Thank you.